President Cyril Ramaphosa says implementing the recommendations of the state capture report will usher in a new chapter in the fight against corruption in South Africa. The president says over 2.9 billion rand has been recovered from companies and those who were involved in state capture. Let's talk about this now with Kevin Malunga, former Deputy Public Protector and now Regenesys Business School Head of Law. On Daytime Update, a very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for your time. So you were there when the Public Protector's Office was investigating what was an emerging picture of state capture at the time. So many years on, finally a report and an action plan from government. Are we going about it the right way as far as addressing what went wrong?
Thank you, Chambegile. Yes, I think logistically, what is ticking the boxes? When we wrote that initial report, the thinking was that this elephant was too big for that particular office at the time. And as you can see, there's been a lot of money spent. I think over $1 billion or almost $1 billion. So the question for people in this country really is whether there has been value for money. So my answer is yes and no. I think the money spent was too much. But I think the information that has come through has been very useful, certainly.
Should we measure, though, the success of government's interventions, in fact, not just government alone, but even as far as prosecutorial agencies are concerned, should that be measured by the number of convictions? Will that be the ultimate measure of justice for this country?
For me, the issue, Tembegile, is the value system that comes out of this entirely. Now, is South Africa a country that respects the rule of law? And during that period, the state capture, so-called state capture years, it became a sort of like a Wild West, where anybody does what they like, and people didn't really fear any consequences. So for me, sorry to be answering this in a roundabout fashion, but I'm getting to your question. To say, look, people must believe in the rule of law, in the justice system. And if convictions and that kind of situation is one of the spin-offs, then I would agree with you. But I think the issue really is whether people take all this seriously,
Just on that point then, how good is it to change or strengthen laws when the people who perhaps to some degree still have to implement the new rules, whatever they may be at the end of this, are still the same?
That's a very good observation. It certainly will not be abracadabra. The president is in a very tight spot. He's in an election year himself. He has to do a delicate balance of the people, some of whom are implicated, some of whom will be delegates at the ANC conference. It's definitely not going to be abracadabra. It's going to be far more tricky than one would expect. But of course, he has to play his part, at least his executive role as president. And I think he has done that. You recall that commission is not just state capture. It talks up, the full name is a commission that deals with state capture, fraud and corruption in the public sector. So that it's quite a very vast sort of a problem that he's faced with. But the reality is that the same people who are, for lack of a better word, implicated or potentially implicated are also his comrades. So it's a very delicate dance for the president. And as I said in my previous remarks, I think the issue really is whether this becomes a country that respects the rule of law, where people feel that wrongdoing of such a grand scale is punished, for lack of a better word. Right. I think that what is always lost in these interviews, Tembegile, and the newspapers, etc., and the discussions, is the impact of this whole state capture, fraud, and corruption thing. Remember, public sector entities and organs are there to render service delivery to the people of this country. So when you take money that is spent, that is earmarked, for Transnet, in other words, rail services, freight, Eskom. I don't even have to remind people what happens when Eskom doesn't work properly. The lights. If this interview, if my light goes off, you know what has happened. The list goes on. It's about service delivery. So people were enriching themselves with money that was meant for delivering goods and services, public goods and services to the people of this country. And when you get taxed, that money is diverted to render public services. You shouldn't have to be driving on potholes. You shouldn't have problems with public health services. You shouldn't have any challenges in the education system, because that money is recouped from you, from your taxes. And in turn, that project, that state capture project during that period was actually undermining that in its entirety. So he's saying the right things, but I think the question would really be the walking of the talk.
But are people also right to say that it can never be truly said that South Africa has dealt with state capture, because what we have now is a report that dealt with the findings, investigations of a specific period under review, when it can be argued that in fact state capture existed previously, even perhaps under a different name, but existed nonetheless, and even post the years of former President Jacob Zuma.
Yes, the monster was growing. Look, the post-1994 structure of a very dominant ruling party with very little competition, and for a significant period there was no one questioned things in terms of the bona fides, etc. When we were in the public protector during the height, when people got to know about it and got excited about it, they got to know about an institution that was always there. It was doing work that it was supposed to do. It wasn't anything new. So I think it's really about a question of political will, and of course an understanding of how democracies fail. You know, in other countries where things have failed, even on the continent. Impunity, the big man syndrome, just doing things the way you like them, that's what happens. So I think hopefully it's a lesson. I think it's probably a lesson too late at this stage because of the things that we are seeing and have seen over the years. But I think it's a chance that, it's a chance certainly for the ruling party to redeem itself. And of course, the president has complied to the instruction that he render a report to the speaker. So I think the question is, will that report be fundamental? I saw the previous speakers that you interviewed talking about lip service. So the question is it lip service? And is this liberation movement going the direction of the rest on the African continent, which have declined significantly?
So would you agree then, perhaps, that greedy politicians and their equally greedy friends in business are the greatest threat to the success of the democratic process and indeed the stability and economic prosperity of South Africa at all levels?
In a way, yes, but I think the issue is the systems. You've correctly identified the systems that, Tembegile, you drive on the left side of the road because the rules say so, and if you decide to drive on the other side, there will be consequences for you, not so. Likewise, in this particular case, people have gotten used to driving on the wrong side of the road with absolutely no consequences for doing so. They just give the cops the finger, and nobody cares. So I think that's probably what needs to be dealt with. So much of the rule, implementation of the rules. The rules are there. I think all this talk about fixing the system is, it does need to be fixed, but I think it's really about the extent to which it actually bites. these entities for a very long time have been toothless bulldogs. In other words, they're bulldogs, but they don't have teeth. So, and I think that's where the dynamic is. And of course, I think maybe the president was trying to alleviate that and address that yesterday. And obviously, people say give him a chance. But the question then that comes forth is how many chances? Because there's so many chances over, So, and I think if this is not addressed, I think the point will be made very clear on the ballot box. So I think there'll be a lot of political jostling over this. I can assure you.
Right. Kevin Malunga, the former Deputy Public Protector, now Head of Law at Regenesys Business School. Good to have your time, sir. Thank you.